All right.
Ready?
Well, except I'm not sure why I lost the spotlight.
Oh, guess what? I turned you off
Oh,
as co-host. Wanted to see the gallery.
hang on.
Um,
Here we go.
welcome everyone. Great to have so many joining us today in the new Global Kinship Forum. This month is Global Kinship. Next month, Marianne will be leading a labyrinth, and following that will be a cosmic vesper. So I'm so glad you found it and you are continuing to follow us or joining us for the first time. We're very excited to have two guests back, but today, for the first time, they're here together. And for this, I will turn it over to Bob Eisenberger.
Well, thank you very much, Penny. We're actually going to start with a piece of ritual, a little candle lighting with Carol. And then I'll do the formal introductions as soon as we're done with this.
Light is one of the things that makes us kin. So if you have a candle and something to light it, you can bring that along to our opening. But if you don't have a candle with you, not to worry. Just recall the food that you had for your last meal, the sun that grew the food, the supernova that seeded the stardust of the sun, and the light that gives life to this planet, to you and me. Call on your inner light. But to begin, I would like to invite those people who live somewhere on this planet within the boreal forest to light their candle. Knowing this, when you see a candle flame, you see the light from the fireball at the beginning of time, out of which everything came. Every point of the cosmos was a point of this, said Brian Swim. And if those of you who live in the Appalachian watershed that flows into the Atlantic, light your candle, remembering this, that from the dark unknown came the very first flaring forth of energy and creativity and infinite potential that is in us. And if you're from the Rocky Mountain watershed that flows west into the Pacific, light your candle, remembering that one and all are centrations and embodiments, vessels of novelty and possibility and radiance and divinity. And if you're on the plains or the prairies somewhere in the world, light your candle, remembering that today in the sixth extinction, the collapse of modernity in this evolutionary moment, we gather already evolving, carrying, sharing, spreading a cosmic light. And if you are somewhere bordering the Indian or the Arctic Ocean, light your candle, remembering that when you see a candle flame, you see the light from the fireball at the beginning of time, out of which everything came. And if you were anywhere else in the world, on this planet, under this sun. Remember, every point of the cosmos was that first light that we see in the candle flame. Thank you, Bob. I hope we didn't miss anybody on the planet.
It was rather comprehensive from my perspective. I think you managed to get everybody, especially with your end there. So we are all gathered together today in celebration and to be introduced to a couple of folks who will not be new to many of you. Some of you will know Carol through her first book, Evolutionary Dancer, Out, In, and on the Fringe of the Church, which has been out for several years, and many of us have benefited greatly from this. Carol is a passionate voice at the intersection of spirituality, ecology, and the evolutionary story. Also with us today is Stephan Martin. Stephan is a deep-time astronomer, educator, and author who, as a partner in the new book that Carol and Stephan are publishing together, which is called Becoming the Change, Evolutionary Rituals and Practices for Everyday Emergence. So as we know so well, Carol is a passionate ritualist, among many other talents. And Stephan brings the cosmic perspective to this work and helps unpack the significance and the importance of the rituals that Carol is introducing us to. So I'd like to get started right off the bat. I'm going to bring both Carol and Stephan up front here and start by asking a question that has crossed my mind many times, and perhaps that of others. And perhaps you can start by just simply unpacking for us, why are rituals important in our lives? This fundamental fulcrum of your work.
Let me ask you a question, Bob. Your name is Bob Robert, probably a few names more, but how did you get that name?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think it was just a name that my folks liked. The middle name has more significance. There's a bit of family connection.
Okay. So your family chose to draw on the family and ritually passed on a name to you. And Steve, how did you ever know that you were American? When did you first, what was your clue that you were American as you were growing up?
Well, every day in school, we had this, I guess you would call it a ritual of saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Right? So we started our school day with this ritual in our school.
And I'm going to call on Margie Abbott, way down in the Southern Hemisphere. And how did you know you were a Christian?
Oh, good question.
This time.
I grew up on a farm in a Catholic community, and I guess my mum and dad had me baptized as a Catholic fairly early in my life, so that was a ritual for sure.
Yeah.
And that's how I know that I'm a Christian.
These are just everyday rituals that we forget are rituals, perhaps. And and why they're so important, Bob, is that they shape us. They shape our identity. They shape nations. You can remember in Canada, we have Canada Day. And then there's a cultural holiday of New Year's Day. So they shape us individually as families. And some of us will remember graduations or convocations, ordinations. They shape us professionally, vocationally. So rituals are vessels of any particular culture or context. And those cultures and contexts, of course, carry a story. And I grew up in a story that has been called the first story, a religious story. I also grew up in a second story of a mechanical, scientifically understood world. And those stories shaped me. And they now, as we continue to use rituals that tell that story, that perpetuate those stories, they preserve and sometimes police that culture or context, and they can reinvent it. So all of our cultures, all of our rituals reflect a context, and that's why I tried hard this morning today to open in a candle lighting that was based in the Earth's regions, and to remember that the only context in which we live, that is the largest one without anything larger, is Earth and then cosmos. Let me just quickly ask for a raise of hands or a hoot out to anybody that's here. When and if you first experienced the cosmic walk, would you say, as I would say, that changed your defining story?
If you'd like to
Yeah,
raise your hand, feel free to use the raise.
yeah, Casey, sure. Yeah, Casey's still teaching that story. Absolutely, and walks. Yes, yeah. So there you go. There's the power of a ritual. And of course, the global kinship community is shaped by that very ritual of the cosmic story.
So another question that has occurred to me in considering your work, obviously the fact that you've chosen to publish a whole book of rituals and explanations, why is it you think we need new rituals?
Let me share my screen.
Sure.
And I don't know, there it is. But one of the things I'll say in terms of before why we need new rituals at this point in time is that rituals always evolved. The Christian culture came about not only by an evolutionary event in consciousness, but also by there it is. The evolution of rituals to carry the new story. So you can see my screen, and we need new rituals at this point in time because it's an
Carol,
evolutionary.
We're not seeing
we
your
can't see
screen.
the screen.
Not sharing my screen.
Nope.
How bizarre. Okay.
There we go. It's coming.
Thank you. Thanks for that. So
Not quite here yet, but it's on its way.
Have you got it yet? They can now see my screen.
We're looking at your desktop, yeah.
That's your
Oh, my
desktop.
desktop. Well, I'm sorry, everybody, about this. This is as frustrating for me as you. And now I bet you're seeing yourself.
No, still the desktop.
I'll stop the share. And so how about a global hoot of hooray? I'm thinking you're seeing my screen now.
Yeah, we got it. Yay.
All right.
Hey.
um, hmm. It's an evolutionary moment. So much is changing, and one of the things that we talk about in the book, and I just read from it for a moment, as we ride the wave of the sixth ecological crisis over the collapsing sandcastles of modernity, it is worth acknowledging the relationship between our beloved rituals, the planetary threat, and humanity's evolutionary moment. It's time to reinvent, to reclaim, and reframe these practices. Evolutionary rituals fashion a new story and a people of higher ecocentric consciousness, and we ask a world of greater mutuality.
Okay.
So that's my answer to that one, Bob.
All right. And I apologize. I think I should have asked you first actually what evolutionary rituals are, what that means. I think you just answered that in what you just said, or is there more you'd want to say to define evolutionary
Yes,
rituals?
absolutely. Evolutionary rituals are a weaving, really, and they're a weaving of different components that are coming to us at this time. The first, of course, is our own current contexts. So mine might be the rituals that identify this as a particular country, but also in their context might include the rituals that I'm familiar with and that shape my path through Christianity. And more recently for me, creation spirituality. So this new understanding of spirituality is one of the threads of evolutionary rituals. Also, the new consciousness that is emerging. They talk of this as a time of acceleration of consciousness. And then there are the sciences, and I'll let Stephen jump in here and talk about how the sciences make up evolutionary rituals.
Oh, thank you, Carol. Well, you kind of pointed towards this earlier when you said we have a cosmic context that is both of universal dimensions, right? We've discovered that we don't just live on a continent, but we live on a planet that's evolving, which is part of a solar system, which is part of a galaxy, which is part of a whole universe. That's a set of nested holes, right? So we belong in these different contexts. And we discover we have a universal context for everything, right? As you indicated in the opening ritual, right? The food that we eat has a cosmic origin, right? We're ingesting elements from the stars, we're ingesting light from the sun, which is energy from the birth of the cosmos. So we have this cosmic evolutionary context that's really being enacted in daily life. And so rituals I think, need to acknowledge that, right? It needs to acknowledge kind of the larger context of which our lives are woven with. The other
And
aspect, just one of the pieces, the other aspect you pointed to is that we not only live in a cosmos, but we're part of a cosmogenesis, right? A cosmos that's evolving, that's giving birth to itself in new ways. And so we as a people need to evolve. We're on a planet that's evolving. And as you indicated, Carol, rituals need to evolve as well. They need to be updated with the discoveries that we're finding about this marvelous, magnificent context that we're part of. So that's one insight. Well, why a scientist would be interested in ritual and why we need a cosmological perspective with rituals.
And the other science that we're bringing, that we're drawing on, is ecology. So the interconnectedness of it all is and a planetary reflection of the cosmic unity that we're celebrating. And again, the ecology and cosmology, both the common story that connects the globe, global humanity as kin. There's another purpose I find very important for me at this time of evolutionary rituals, and that's that it helps me actually name and to name the fear and the loss and even the malaise of living in a time of extinction. So there's a powerlessness about that, and it's wonderful to balance that with an understanding of that we are expressions of cosmic creativity. We can never see evolution move particularly, so it's important to remember that there's a dance of cataclysm, always leading to emergence, and that's our context. So we hope that with these rituals, we'll shape a future species living within, more deeply within the earth as a community.
So we've talked about what evolutionary rituals are and why we need new rituals and the purposes behind evolutionary rituals in particular. And Steve, you commented on why we need cosmology in rituals. Have we covered that particular question about why we need cosmology in this kind of an exercise and these kinds of works that we do? Is there more to be said about that?
Certainly there's more, and Carol made a nod towards this already in mentioning both ecology and cosmology, which I would describe as both sciences of belonging, right? Ecology is the study of our belonging, right, to the Earth community. And so, of course, ecologically grounded rituals are acknowledgments of that belonging and also interweaving with that larger web of belonging. One of the functions of rituals, and Carol's mentioned this, is that they weave a people together. And whenever there's a problem, and this comes from Thomas Berry, the solution is always community, right? The solution is always connection. To whatever problem you're facing, the solution is connecting and being in relationship with the larger context. And so we certainly need an ecological dimension to rituals because part of the muck that we're in as humans is we have this idea that we're separate somehow from the natural world. And so rituals reweave our participation back into the natural world. Now, we've also discovered that we're part of an evolutionary cosmos. And so cosmology in the modern form is the science of studying our belonging to the whole. And so rituals interweave ourselves with the whole that has given birth to us, right? That larger context of which the earth is also an expression of wholeness. And so when we enact the cosmological dimension of this, we acknowledge our deep kinship with the stars, with the planets, with the galaxies, with each other, that we're all interwoven aspects of the whole. And it also interweaves us back into this 13.8 billion year sacred lineage from which we come from. So these rituals have a function in giving us a connection to the larger context, but also interweaving us back into the whole. So that's why I feel we really need the cosmic dimension in rituals as well as the earth dimension. They're both so important based on what we've discovered in modern 20th and 21st century science.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. So I find myself wondering, Carol, is when do we actually use evolutionary rituals? Is there a particular time of the year or differing rituals for various times?
Yeah, yes. When we use them. I will say that these rituals have come about in response to my own questions about living in this time with a new cosmological story, with new ecological wisdom, with new technology, with new consciousness, with an extinction. And so I'd love to have time enough to ask everybody that's here, what is a question you've been struggling with since you first heard the New Universe story and been trying to integrate that into your life or trying to adjust? And so these rituals answer a lot of these questions that have come up for me. In questions like, what time is it? And so the first chapter has for rituals taking the cosmological story and putting it into forms that we can use it alone with others, and understand these new beginnings. And then we use these rituals at times of life's thresholds. This is a woman who at 65 celebrated her final achievement of her convocation and a BA. And so this was called the Dance of Emergence. But birth, as you say, blessings of babies, welcoming, what we would have known as baptisms, still do. Also of marriages, weddings. I've personally found a great help in rewriting my Dance of Living On in preparation for my celebration of life. And so throughout the year, and this is a chapter called The Threshold Moments. And then there's another important chapter of rituals addressing eco-anxious days. Days when we honor the grief and the loss. Steve and I went through an interesting time with the hurricanes and whether to employ rituals for the grief of so much loss around Asheville, for example. And Steve, do you want to talk about realizing, we're psychoterratic beings and we needed to process that?
I'll just say briefly that, my experience of going through the hurricane and the subsequent flooding in Asheville, North Carolina, was very dramatic. And traumatic in some ways. And so creating rituals were ways of making meaning, of reestablishing connection to the natural world, to others, and also providing, as you've indicated, Carol, these rituals, they're containers. They're containers for our grief. They're containers for our feeling. They're also containers for our belonging to each other, to the ecosystem, to the process of cataclysm, the process of breaking down and building up that nature goes through. And so when we align ourselves and create a space for these powers. We might even call them the power of the universe, right? Cataclysm or emergence or new growth. When we do that consciously, I think it really helps with our own healing, but also empowers us in new ways to take something of that experience and bring it in a life forward direction, weaving our life back into the cosmic fabric or the fabric of the landscape that we're a part of. So that was personally helpful for me. And I know others have also, naturally enacted similar rituals around where I live.
But this was another one, and I'm going to be doing this particular ritual, the dance of synergy. Many of the rituals are trying to get closer to our understanding and inclusion of the powers of the universe in our lives. So the dance of synergy I'm going to be doing on a program called Earth Literacies, where we're setting the table and we're remembering that we are always in a dance between the peril and the promise, as the Earth Charter said, of these particular times. There's a chapter on evolutionary churches, and some of the theology that may be in the rituals at this time may be questionable to some readers. And that's such a wonderful experience to realize I can change, I am changing belief thus far, but there are bits and pieces. There is this that is essential. And so these are rituals that I have shared in congregation. And the question around that one was, why is there an earth ball in the manger? And the other is sharing the story of the galaxies. And instead of celebrating Advent as we've known it, we celebrated the adventure of living in an evolutionary reality. So those are some of the reasons, some of the times that we have been using evolutionary rituals. And then there's a whole section, Bob, on practices for everyday emergence. And we'll finish off today with one of those. Bob, you're muted.
My apologies. I have background noise, which I've been trying to shut out when it's not my turn to speak.
No, Bob, I was wondering, that's a lot of spewing on my part and information from Steve. What about the community here? Are there any questions? Do we need to stop and address anything?
But maybe you want to stop your screen share and we can see everybody online. We'll come back to this if we need to.
Thanks. We'll come right back to the next thing.
All right. And
if there's nothing, that's fine too. But
okay, well let's just go back to.
I see Marianne Warmhoff.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
The question that came to me while this was a lovely introduction to your work. Thank you. I can't wait for it to come out. I am finding myself, and I suspect lots of us are, that's maybe my question. You said something about we can do these rituals alone, and I do believe it's important to ritualize moments ourselves. But wow, I really crave sharing these rituals the way we did at the gathering at the Cape. The with a circle of perhaps mostly like-minded people. I mean, how do you address that? How do you address that? Does anybody else have that seesaw? And how do you address it? That's what I'm thinking. Maybe this isn't the time.
Well, it's a key question. I think longing for ritual community is not only prevalent, but it's actually what I've discovered in my study. It's elemental to being human. You know, stars gathered into galaxies and schools into fish, and humans have been gathering forever. And so this understanding of gathering for ritual practice and growth is who we are. I used this particular ritual, the dance of emergence, which you saw laid out on the floor. I used that with a birthday at the house, putting the candles on a cake. And so we had whoever was at the table, I think there was 6 that night. And so I've been able to adapt them to home. It's one example. Any more questions or comments?
I don't see any more hands going up.
All right. Then I think we were going to try one right now.
That'd be wonderful.
I'm going to go back to the sharing.
Oh, we're back at your desktop.
It's a stubborn little thing, isn't it? Then I think what we'll do is we'll just introduce this next ritual, and I'll show that on the other screen when we're ready. The point is that this ritual is called the Dance of Global Kinship, and it was inspired by this particular program, Gail and Penny. So I thank you for that. How do I share that now? And how we set up our evolutionary rituals in the book is with is with an introduction. And part of the introduction is naming. What kind of ritual is this, given the breadth of ritual forms that there are religiously and socially and culturally? So this is a mandala meditation, and the intention is absolutely essential in an evolutionary ritual. And it's going to be to know reality as nested kinship. We live in a nested reality of kinship. And so when you might use this, and we list some times like environmental holidays, preservation of the ozone layer or car-free day, et cetera, there's a lot of them. Or you might use it with a group, but this is one you might also do alone because it's a mandala meditation. And there's a glossary that you might need to know, the words like noosphere or phylum. But that's the part of the introduction. Also part of it is a background and evolutionary moment that Steve can tell us about.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. And as you pointed to, right, the mandala is a sacred circle, right? It's a patterned representation of wholeness. And as Carol had mentioned, one of the things we found about the structured nature of reality, or the universe that we live in, is that it seems to be a series of nested wholes. So every person, place, or thing is whole and complete in themselves, and they too are a member of a larger whole. And that whole is wholly complete and part of a larger whole, all the way up to the cosmos. So by acknowledging our participation in this experience of wholeness and the sense of belonging to each of these wholes, we affirm that there's other dimensions, larger dimensions to our participation and belonging in the largest whole of all, the universe. So by acknowledging that we're connected to nested whole within nested whole, we're really reconnecting our own participation within the larger context. So that's the idea here, is that everything belongs, and the mandala is a pattern that represents that interwoven belonging of everything in a series of nested wholes. And so that's why Carol has provided this mandala diagram, which I think was shared in the chat, which people can refer to as representing this set of nested wholes. And so that's part of what this ritual does, is it orients us to the wholes of belonging that we're each a part of and that are all a part of us.
Thank you, Steve, and thanks for that reminder. I'm going to share that document again in the chat because a few people have entered since we first put it out there. So I'll be proceeding with that, Carol, as you go ahead.
Okay, so I will, whoops. So I'll just share my screen again, and we'll look at that mandala. Yeah, there we go. And so these are all tools that you can bring to a mandala meditation that you have around you. And in between our meditations, as we move from the central circle to the outer circle, and so on, we're going to take a moment for evolutionary consciousness to drop in. We're going to have meditative words and then silence and so on. With each circle, we can lift up or place our symbol that goes with that meditation. So I invite you to take a deep breath. To sit back, knowing that at birth, each of us is promised a quantum of energy. And the universe grants this gift of energy, asking only in return that we use it to say who we are. So I invite you to focus on the innermost circle, holding an image of yourself that can be a mirror or a picture. Hear and feel, take in these words. You contain the genetic memory of your ancestors' allurements, challenges, and potentials. Generations have contributed to your genetic self. A mirror, an image of that history. You are their unique representative in this evolutionary moment. Steve.
Now you might expand the range of your vision to include the second circle, representing your species self. Allow your eyes to rest on that second circle as you hear these words. It took Earth more than 4 billion years to bring forth today's humans. 6 million years ago, chimpanzees and hominids shared 99% of the same DNA. After 21 evolutions of the Homo genus, 9 evolutions of consciousness, and 12,000 generations of Homo sapiens, our species inhabits the arable planet, explores space, and holds the power to shape the future. Chimpanzees remain in equatorial Africa. We celebrate, we are Homo sapiens, the species that preserves its DNA through language and symbols. And so I acknowledge this by placing a book, a carrier of cultural DNA, into our circle.
Expanding your perspectives. Focus on a third circle out from the center. Hearing that it took universe 7.3 billion years to turn scattered stellar fragments and gas into the animal, vegetable, and mineral matter that is Earth. It takes 84 minerals, 23 elements, 8 gallons of water in 38 trillion cells, recycled butterflies, plants, rocks, trees, and bees to be you. You share 70% of your DNA with slugs, 50% with trees, 44% with bees, and 25% with daffodils. You are the planet. And the fruit, the vegetable, the piece of food you have, bring that close, hold it up with thanks, and place it near your mandala. Let any thoughts about your planetary self that drop in, drop in.
As you allow your focus to expand and include the fourth circle, we celebrate our elemental self. Inhaling air for oxygen and exhaling carbon dioxide that forests and oceans recycle once again as oxygen. You eat food and receive energy captured from a fireball. Unable to live more than a few days without it. You drink water that's 4.4 billion years old. You are earth, air, fire, and water. You are the elements. We celebrate our elemental self as we inhale our next breath, take a sip of water, and bring the water, the air, and the other elements into our sacred circle, allowing any insights from our elemental self to emerge naturally.
We expand to new circles, new ideas, to a circle representing the noosphere that shapes our reality. This sphere of collective consciousness that has been informed by all the treaties and creeds and constitutions, by all the science and art and philosophies of humanity. This superorganism that envelops Earth is now being informed by values and norms and laws and beliefs and philosophies which will shape the future. With whatever electronic device is probably close at hand, we lift it up, we celebrate the insights and questions that drop in about our noosphere.
Allowing your focus to expand once again, this time taking in the sixth outermost circle, our cosmic self, the self that includes all the other selves. You are the cosmos looking at itself through the James Webb Space Telescope. You are conscious of being part of a vast cosmic communion and originating in the first flaring forth. We place a candle, a form of light, in our circle as we celebrate insights, questions, and guidance from our cosmic self that want to come into our circle.
And now with your mandala, I'm going to invite you to tear in or cut in later on about 5 tears or 5 cuts along the outer edge. And bend those flaps now up. Bend them up, and you will end up with a nest. And it is in this nest that we put our candle and remember the awe, the wonder, the grace of being part of a nested reality.
Thank you
That
for
was
that.
beautiful.
Yes, indeed. Thanks to both of you for guiding us through that. I love the image of a nested reality.
Yes, it's something to remember in different times of our lives when life is falling, feels like it's, sounds like it's falling apart. So I just have a few questions here that can be prompts. Why it won't get larger, but for conversation.
I think you want to click slideshow first.
And it's still not working, but I'll just read the questions. this is a conversation for us as kin now, and we're celebrating the questions. So what's different in what we're calling evolutionary rituals? Absolutely, what's challenging? What's helpful? Once upon a time, I was in I was visiting a book study group on the first book of evolutionary spirituality, and somebody asked me this question: evolutionary spirituality, so what? So that was a powerful question. But each one of them are gifts. They move us along. So I'm so hoping that we can put it into gallery view, Bob, and engage in conversation now with the creation spirituality community and the visitors today. I know some of us are introverts, so you might want to write your question or write a word. If there's a word that came to mind that dropped in, maybe that's something you just want to talk about.
I would suggest a prompt based on what you just asked. Your question, Carol, is what's different for people?
Okay.
How are you feeling now compared to before the ritual? What's changed in you after having participated in this cosmic ritual of kinship?
Yes, Marianne, go ahead. Unmute yourself, please, and then ask your question.
Okay.
Mary,
So it's what's different is that my context is bigger. That's what deep time and the cosmos and cosmogenesis in particular does, I think, for us. The context is bigger, which is both, I mean, because it's for me relatively new. I mean, it's been a few years, right? But 13.8 billion context is different than a few thousand years, right? So that's it's both wow, it's so big, you know, I can't wrap my head around it, but it's hopeful because there's all this nested support. There's all this support. And knowing that the cosmos has weathered storms before is very hopeful, I think.
I love that. Thanks, Marianne.
Thanks, Marianne.
Marianne McCain was waving a hand.
Oh, I just put my hand up when you asked about how we felt. With the net, when you folded the nest up, I had a really strong sense of belonging, and I'm aware of how important belonging is to us humans, a feeling of belonging, belonging to our communities, belonging to our world, belonging to our planet, belonging to the cosmos. And that ritual summed that up very beautifully, I thought. So I just wanted to say thank you and tell you that was the feeling that was left in me with it. Thank you.
Thanks, Marianne. Casey Carmichael has her hand up as well.
Yeah, oh, thank you so much, Carol and Steve. That was a beautiful ritual. And how I feel different from before we did it is kind of similar to what Marianne said, but in a different way, that I am feeling a bigger context from just more in my thinking mind to my whole being. Like my body, I feel my body now. I feel my heart. I feel that greater whole, as well as the whole of this circle of community doing this together. And then also, and like Marian was saying, the nestedness, the wholeness of the earth, that and the cosmos. So beautiful. And just that little ritual making a big difference in all those ways. So thank you.
Nice, thanks. Margie.
Thanks, Bob. I have a couple of things that I'd love to share with you, Carol and Steve and the whole group. One of them is what a joy to be invited in the candlelight ceremony at the beginning, the candle lighting ritual, to be able to include the Southern Hemisphere. I see that there's somebody from Aotearoa, New Zealand here too, and it's lovely that we are included. But we are living in an era of extinction, and I think the daily practices are so connected with these much needed rituals, Carol and Steve, that you are sharing with us. I was just thinking about, since 1995, I have drawn a daily mandala, and I find that practice very, very powerful every single day. And I think this is partly from the ritual that you've shared with us today. We can be practicing just one part of that every single day of our lives, because we are living in a time when we just have to savor the uncertainty. We don't know what the next day is bringing. So thank you both very, very much. And for the community that makes this possible.
Absolutely. A few things have been triggered here. A practice. What a wonderful idea for practice. We'll have to add a line or two, Steve, to the book. But one of the practices is a daily evolutionary journal. And what I keep is a journal of when I see an evolutionary advancement somewhere in the world. Young people in some part of the world who have developed a solar panel for a village, for a community, for a home, the skimming of the pollution. Whenever I see any evolutionary improvement, I get that in my journal because I need to take care of my hope, of my belief in the emergence process. Yeah.
Gail, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. I had a thought at just when we were at like the sixth circle of the mandala. I had the thought that this is such a classic shape that people have used. Find it everywhere throughout human life. It's people make mandalas, and to me, it's a sense of, which I always enjoy, is how ancient groups of people came up with the things we're learning in science now, but they expressed it in their own way and usually non-verbally. So here, all these mandalas are saying we are a nested whole.
Thanks so much for drawing our attention to the tradition, the ancient tradition of rituals and how many forms there actually are. So it's been a wonderful learning or revisitation or reminder for me. So some of the rituals in the book are vigils, some are candle lighting, some are body prayer, and we'll end with one of those. Let's see, there's just psalms, chants, movement itself. It's just to use movement, knowing that it is ritual embodiment of an idea, a longing, and a promise. So we've been using all sorts of rituals in these evolutionary expressions. And the other piece that somebody has raised was the idea of language, of hearing language in ritual form that has an element of reverence, significance, power, importance to it. This is the lifting up of the of third story, and its transformation of us as it comes back with language to change us. So we've been playing with language, and it's been freeing, opening.
Here, I want to just add one more piece to what Gail shared. Gail, I love that you shared that you had an inspiration when you were reflecting on the sixth circle, because one of the functions of rituals is to concentrate consciousness. And so these can be sources of inspiration and guidance that can come through rituals, right? So if we have a problem, if we have a situation of eco-grief, if we have something that we're struggling with, an after ritual can be a place where guidance may come in, or something just may come into your consciousness. Oh, I need to do that next. So just know that these rituals are evolutionary and that they may point to the next step forward for a people, for a culture, for an individual. So there's more to rituals than simply enacting the actions. They're opening spaces for evolution to take place, evolution in consciousness. So I think that's an important aspect to mention here as well. And Gail, I love that you illustrated that. You had inspirations during the ritual. So be aware of that.
Excellent point. Thank you to you both for that revelation for the rest of us. Yes, Tom, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes. Are mandalas, is there any relationship between mandalas and fractals that I see so often in nature?
What a wonderful question. Stephen, do you want to jump in?
I see a fractal as a mathematical mandala. So you could just take a fractal picture and simply reflect on that, right, as a visio divina, and just see how it's nested whole of nested whole, nested whole. That's a ritual in itself, simply reflecting on the nested nature and self-organizing pattern nature of reality. So certainly, yeah, there's certainly a connection.
Yeah,
in fact,
thank
just
you.
to mention this, oh yeah, thank you, Tom. Just to mention this, one thing that I've done with people, and Carol's done this as well, is take one of those images from the James Webb Telescope, those spectacular space images, and use that as Visio Divina. Just simply allow yourself to open to that image and notice what comes. Right? There's power in this. There's power in these images. And these are new images for, seeding our psyche for the future. So I love that we're reflecting on fractals as a mandala, but also the images from the James Webb. These are also cosmic images, right? Images of the whole that we can also reflect upon as a new kind of mandala coming into our culture right now. Great question, Tom.
Any more?
Any more
Or
questions?
comments? Or what you're doing in your life to change your rituals up?
Carolyn Million has a question or a comment. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Carolyn.
Well, I was really just still responding to what you got out of the meditation, and the two words that came to me were hallow and fallow. I feel both hallowed, holy, and fallowed. And I looked that up just to make sure I had the right concept. Plowed and left unseeded for a season, uncultivated. So I come out of it uncultivated, but feeling hallowed.
Wow. Yeah, yes. One of the things that's been coming to me from listening to some of the responses early on, it talked about the magnitude. Like Marianne was talking about the magnitude that we can't get our heads around. And it struck me at that time how important a gift it is right now in this time of uncertainties in many aspects of our whole, to be reacquainted with awe. I think that's a rephrasing of an old hymn, but to be reacquainted with awe, to be reacquainted with wonder, to reacquaint ourselves with The mysterium is the word that Father Stephen reminded me of this week. To be reacquainted with the humility, with the path of no thingness in the negativa, the path of being emptied into a fecund nothingness. So I was just thinking of, yes, isn't it wonderful? We can't get our heads around certain things, and we can open again to a new depth of relationship with in kinship. Well,
Indeed. Any other questions or reflections, thoughts percolating through your mind? Marianne, yes.
There we go. I think a lot about circles because I work with labyrinths. And often in a workshop, we will create a mandala, typically out of what's found in nature. And someone 6 months ago asked my partner, what does a mandala have to do with a labyrinth, right? And it caught me by surprise. I wasn't expecting that question. You know how that happens sometimes. But it's a sacred circle. It's an archetype. They both are. And when I think more about that, of course, the labyrinth is created with sacred geometry, which is from nature. But circle, we've been talking about belonging, forming community. That happens in a circle. You know, that doesn't really happen with a podium up front and the rest of us in chairs. You know, that happens in a circle where we talk to one another and see one another, which is why even though we're not in a circle, we see one another right now, and it's forming. I think of it as forming a circle of community. So that's all I wanted to say.
yes. Circles and spirals. It's what's an interesting relationship in my own work with evolutionary rituals. And Steve, did you want to say goodbye?
I want to say just one more thing about labyrinths and cosmology, and then I also need to say goodbye, unfortunately. Marianne, I'm just struck by kind of the parallels between labyrinths and modern cosmology, because in every direction we go in the universe, we come to the center, the same as a labyrinth. So it's almost like a labyrinth is enacting kind of the evolutionary journey of the universe in coming here. So we find the center everywhere, and all paths lead to the center. So it's just a beautiful kind of image or metaphor of the cosmic journey.
Yeah. And the labyrinth in my yard is made of 2 spirals. It's a little different than Chartres or the classical.
Yeah. And we live in a spiral galaxy too. So certainly there's all these kind of sacred archetypal images that we see repeated through the universe in a fractal way, to kind of bring in Tom's question as well. So
I think we're given archetypes show up when we need them.
Yes, wonderful.
And we're given even the James Webb photographs. We're given this when we need it. And boy, we need it, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
The
Well, unfortunately,
composition.
I was saying I need to transition
Sorry,
now.
Steve?
Go ahead, Carol. I was just going to say goodbye to everyone. I need to transition to another event, but thank you for letting me join you all. Wonderful to be in a space of ritual together. Blessings to all of you on your cosmic journey, and I look forward to gathering with you another time. So, take care, everyone. Thanks, Carol. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Steve, for
Thank you
bringing
so
your
much.
life work, using your quantum of energy in so many ways right now.
Oh,
Thank you,
it's a
Steve.
wonderful place to spend it. Thank you for hosting me.
Thank you, Steve.
Bye, everyone.
Absolutely radiant, radiance. All right. We're surprisingly right on time. And so, Bob, if it's all right, I will invite a closing ritual when you're ready.
Okay, that's fine. And then I think there are a couple people that maybe have announcements to make. So, but that probably works best after your ritual, or should we do those first?
Um,
I think they're brief, but while
um,
we're together here.
Well, I think it's a way of celebrating the community and the longing that we have for ritual community. Patty's here from Sundays and so on. So yes, let's have the announcements and celebrate that we are a community giving and growing one another.
Okay, beautiful. So first, I would invite Marianne. I think you have an event upcoming that you might want to make sure everybody knows about.
We I don't even know what you're talking about, but because we have so many events and they're all so good, and we would like you to be with us at all of them, you know. But there's a big one coming up that you're going to want to save the date for. The end of May, the 30th and 31st, and the 1st of June. There's an online gathering where Friday evening and 3 different times on Saturday. And in fact, Steve and Penny will be presenting on Saturday. And a Saturday evening, there'll be a labyrinth walk, yay. And Sunday evening will be at First Sunday, which is what Patty will talk about. We've got certification courses going now. What were you thinking of, Bob, that you
Well,
want me to plug?
in particular, I was thinking of the Labyrinth event that is a part of our next month's
Yes.
first Thursdays.
Yeah,
And there's a nice coincidence of timing there.
there is. And it looks like it's pronounced Beltane, and I believe it's pronounced Bealtaine. I'm learning we do we teach what we have to learn. So I'm learning this as I go along. Yeah, if you just come on the first Thursday at this time. Normally, the labyrinth walks have been in the evening, and I've been wondering if that's the best time. I don't know. They're recorded and they're in our YouTube archive. Um, and I hope you come. I hope you come. It's a creation spirituality walk of the labyrinth.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And Gail, I think perhaps you have something you wanted to tell us about?
I do. This is a meditation group called Meditation for the Nation, and a few other religious professionals and friends and I have put this together. We were talking about activism, and I said my activism is prayer and meditation. And so we decided to do it together. And we're all different states. But and this is what we're going to do, taking off of the concept of where attention goes, energy flows. You know, what you put your attention to is what flourishes for you, or as I say, the seeds that you water are the seeds that grow. So with that, we thought about how so many of us are taking in the news about what's happening in America and around the world, and how hard it is to kind of own that, but also let it begins to form us. And to have the fear and to have the just negativity through our whole bodies and our expectations. And so what we've done is, for about 10 minutes every day, we first acknowledge what our fears and our frustrations, and then we send them out, and then we notice what's good. We notice what's positive. And this can be something that some brave, courageous thing somebody's doing in Washington, but it can be, the kids playing in the yard next door. It's just that. It's just that good energy, the positive energy that we want to give shape to. And of course, we ask you to join us. That's we do it at 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock on the morning Eastern Standard Time. But really, it's an atmosphere of positivity we're creating. Whenever you add into it, that is great. as far as how it fits to this conversation, we've talked, many of us, about how we all began to talk about the shift and the big change that was coming. And then we had, now we now talk about the evolution and how we're part of it. And I think we expected it to come. I did. I was hoping it wouldn't be so cataclysmic, but it is cataclysmic because that's how the universe behaves. So this is for the short run, but it's also for the long run. That as we come out of this, we come out in cloaked in the aura of good, rather than anger, resentment, and violence. So
Excellent. Thank you, Gail. And pardon me if I missed it. How do people connect with this?
Um, I don't know. Right now they connect by going to our stack and then creating just letting us know what the good things you saw in your meditation, letting us just telling us and everybody what they're doing. And that's how our plan is right now. We have a little text group that the founders. So if you want to have a text group, or you want to join ours, let me know, but so that you have somebody to talk to about it. That's the plan is that hopefully people will
So,
find.
but in terms of concrete something, do you want to give people your email address if they want to connect with you to get connected?
But how about we put things in the chat? Because I love that the chat goes out to everybody.
Yep. That's a good point. And maybe you mentioned a Substack. Maybe you want to mention the name of the Substack in there as well.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
It's meditation for the nation with the letter 4 because the other one was.
Okay, just type it in there, please. I don't know if you caught it. Penny also put a note in the chat that the next global kinship event is in July. And our friend JD Stillwater, who calls himself a science educator, will be with us that day. He's got delightful energy. He's a real treat to spend time with and to expand our learning about this universe we co-inhabit. We're all getting used to this new timing. So the fact that we're about 4 times a year on this new rotation. So that'll be the next global kinship in first Thursday in July. Did we catch everybody?
Well, not yet. Patty was going to talk about First Sundays, which we have this Sunday.
Thank you. Patty, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Yes, every first Sunday, Creation Spirituality Communities sponsors a ritual based on the 4 paths of creation spirituality and filled with whatever the people who are coming to the ritual bring to the ritual. It's very brief sacred reading, and then basically it's group breakouts, and you bring what you need to learn or want to share and so forth. We hope it's nourishing and inspiring. And if you're not on the mailing list for Creation Spirituality Communities, and they send out a weekly newsletter, CSC Happenings, the link to get into the Sunday ritual is on that. And I apologize to our folks in the Southern Hemisphere because it's 7 o'clock in the morning and it's not very convenient maybe, but it is also recorded. So we hope you'll join us. And the gathering that Marianne mentioned, which is the end of May, the beginning of June, also happens to be the first Sunday of June. So that first Sunday will be a big first Sunday. So we hope to see you all there.
Excellent. Thank you, Patty. If there is anyone here who is not already on the Creation Spirituality Communities newsletter, you will be shortly, because after each of these events, I take the contact information of the people who are here and make sure they get added to that list.
Good.
So you'll be getting that information.
Thank you,
Right.
Bob.
All right.
Do you want to just remind people about the YouTube channel? Because there's lots there now.
Okay. Thank you, Penny. Indeed, we record each of these events and post them to, if you just simply go to YouTube and in the search bar on YouTube, type in Creation Spirituality Communities and look for the spiral logo. There's another one that always seems to bump to the top of the list. Second on the list is usually ours. And when you get to that channel page for Creational Spirituality Communities, you'll look for the playlists. And you'll find a playlist for Global Kinship, as well as others for First Sundays and other significant events, recurring events that go on. So you can always go back and look at those again. Okay, I think we've exhausted our list, Carol. If you want to go ahead now and ease us out with another ritual, please.
On behalf of the whole community, to Carolyn and Bob and Penny and Gail and Patty and Marianne, so many of you, we're grateful. We need this and we're grateful. And we're also in need of embodiment and ways of overcoming the dualistic understanding that we are separate, not just from one another or different parts of the planet, but from the earth itself or the cosmos. So we are going to use a chant now, and we're going to move our bodies along the 4 paths plus a couple. And this is the chant, people. Om, Om, Om. You can do that, and we'll turn, stand up. Om, Om, Om. I invite you to turn to face the west and to take a step forward onto the path of justice and transformation. Open wide arms, heart, and mind, celebrating that Earth rotates on its axis from west to east, causing us to see how the day appears in the west, how injustices disappear with the night and a new day begins. This is the path of the cosmic compassion. Om, Om, Om. And we turn to the north and step on the path to darkness, the path of letting go knowns, where we empty or are emptied of certainties of all life as it was. The north and the North Pole, where before the light begins to return at the spring equinox, there is a winter season and 24 hours of darkness, reminding the darkness is essential to home. 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 We turn to the east and we step on to the Via Creativa, the path of birthing. We celebrate Earth's rotating on its axis from the west to the east, causing the sun and the moon and a new day to appear in the east. And we chant home, 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 home. And we turn our face to the heavens, to the mystery, to the sky, gateway to the cosmos, and to that all surrounding protection that is our atmosphere. And we step further along the path of awe, for it is just the right air pressure and temperatures, just the right mix of nitrogen and oxygen that allows us to breathe in and to sing out, home, home, home. And we turn our face to the ground, to the floor, to the soil beneath all of us. And we remember the web of life that is woven of the soils and the waters and the minerals and the plants and the trees and the bedrock and countless migrating species. We remember our bioregion is defined not by political boundaries, but by ecological systems, creating and supporting the earth community, the kinship in which we gather today. And we celebrate. Om, 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 Om. And in your evolutionary journal, you might record if there is some place, some particular path, some part of your life work that you've discovered in this chant and dance that you need to spend more time to feel at home in yourself, in the world.
Thank you so much, Carol.
Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Carol, and to Steve, obviously, and to all of you for joining us today. Keep your eye out for the regular newsletters and know about our upcoming events. And if you want, again, I'll mention if you want to rewatch any of our past activities, you can find them on YouTube.
And might I mention that we just put up a page today at my website, www.carolkilby.com, a place where you can put your name and address, email if you want to be notified when pre-sales for the book has started. And you can celebrate that with me and with Steve, that we're in conversation with Green Spirit in the UK on its publication.
That's great.
Excellent. Excellent.
Till we spark again.
We're
Blessed be.
connected.
Blessed be. Thanks all.
Thank you. Good to see everyone.